Episode of the Standing Room Only podcast. I am Goose. As always, I'm here with Healy. We have a special one in store for you guys, not only because it's episode 60, not only because it's Mr. Healy's birthday. Everybody wish him a happy birthday. But there is a huge news around the sports world. We are going to talk about the James Harden trade, 4-team trade today, guys. We are going to talk about big signings in Major League Baseball and, of course, the NFL playoffs. Before we do get started, just want to remind you guys, make sure you do download the episode, depending on where you listen to us. Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube as well. You can find us on our social media, SR Only Pod. You can follow our personal accounts. I'm iGoose with 4 O's, and then we have Healy.
Follow me at the Healy6.
So we talked about it before the podcast, guys. We decided, you know what, with big news like this, it was bound to happen. James Harden is no longer a Rocket. He basically was as vocal as he can be, as verbally expressive as he can be to get out of Houston, and the deal is done in a 4-team trade. He is now a part of the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets received James Harden and James Harden only. Part of that deal, the Nets are going to get James Harden. The Rockets ended up getting Victor Oladipo. They have Dante Exum, Karooks. They have 3 Brooklyn first-round picks. They have a first-round pick from Milwaukee. And then they have 4 Brooklyn first-round swaps. The Pacers were involved in the trade. They ended up getting Caris Lavert and a second-round pick. And the Cavs, they ended up getting Jarrett Allen, which is a great pick for them. And then they got Taurean Prince. Healy, what was your initial reaction? Obviously, not just only to the James Harden trade, because I know everybody around the world was like, it's only a matter of time. When is it going to happen? And it did happen. So I know there is a bit of shock there. But the whole trade, the whole 4-team trade to make it work, what was your initial reaction?
I was surprised how quickly it came about, because last night was literally the press conference night where James Harden's like, yeah, I've done all I can here. It's over. Like, they aren't going to win anything. I've done it. And at first, I thought it was only going to be 2 teams. Then we saw the Pacers got involved, in which Caris Lavert went to the Pacers for Victor Oladipo. That one was kind of surprising. I know the Pacers were trying to get rid of Oladipo, and I'm honestly just surprised that the Rockets got rid of Lavert. Lavert's probably the best player that got traded out of this deal, and especially with the Rockets getting rid of their star player, they decided to get rid of the best player for Oladipo. The contracts might be better that way. Also, the Cavs getting involved and getting Jarrett Allen, that was huge.
That was huge.
I don't know, like, I thought Allen would have been decent on the Rockets. I don't know how that came about as well, with the Rockets getting a bunch of guards when they already have like Eric Gordon and John Wall. Their big men situation, I don't really know. They have DeMarcus Cousins, but
yeah,
and Christian Wood.
Yeah.
So maybe Allen went to a different team because he could start. The Cavs getting Allen, though, kind of weird, because they already have JaVale McGee. They already have, like, Lopez. They have Andre Drummond.
Andre Drummond's a huge one, and he's having another phenomenal year. This is probably one of the best years we're seeing from Andre Drummond. At this point, it was funny because I saw a tweet. At this point, they're going to start 5 centers in a game at this point. I mean, I know that they have incredible guards, the Cavs. Very interesting to get Jarrett Allen. Jarrett Allen was swapping he was coming off the bench. He would start with the Nets. He was playing. It's an opportunity, the way I look at it, for him to actually go in and thrive. Every team I felt like got a boost here, and the Rockets had no choice but to get rid of, right? They had no choice. Harden was becoming a cancer in their locker room. And generally speaking, Harden's not a bad guy. Normally around the locker room, he's okay. I know that there's always rumors where, well, he doesn't have that winning mentality. He's a stat stuffer, whatever it may be. And then last night, obviously, he made some comments, and DeMarcus Cousins, ripped him back. He's like, wait, this is disrespectful. Like, you don't do this to your team. Well, obviously, lo and behold, as we all have known, he's been wanting to go to the Nets to rejoin with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. even though they never played together for quite some time now. I believe since even going towards the end of last season, after, during the playoffs. So it was bound to happen. I hate to see it because the Rockets were a very interesting team to watch this season. Obviously, they aren't playing up to par, but it had to happen, and I'm glad it happened. I'm glad it happened, and the NBA trade deadline is going to be very interesting now because I mean this is something you would see around the trade deadline,
Hmm.
but Harden didn't waste any time with it, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play, how the big three play. One thing I wanted to touch on was the Brooklyn Nets. We've talked about it on a couple episodes already. How much talent they have and how deep their roster is, their depth, right? And now they're gone. Jarrett Allen's gone. Spencer Dinwiddie, we talked about, is out for the year. Caris Lavert, who is to me a great hooper. He can play, he can ball. He always steps in when he needs to. He was, if he had to come off the bench, he would do it. And he would play pretty damn well. So now the question is, okay, they have three great players. We don't know how their chemistry is going to be, and they're not as deep as they used to be. Is this team to you still a favorite in the East? I mean, obviously they're going to be good. They're going to win games, but would you consider them still your favorite in the East?
Thinking about it today, I'm going to say yes. This team, very good big three. We just need Kyrie Irving to come back and play the role. They lost the depth. Depth is good when you don't really have your star players out on the court.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have three great guys like Durant, Harden, and Irving that can go out there with a group of four and dominate, you don't really necessarily need it as much as like we emphasized.
Mm-hmm.
This Nets team, they're going to have a star player on the court at all times. You are not going to see them go a few minutes without two players like the Lakers. They might go a couple minutes without both Anthony Davis and LeBron, just because if they play together in certain stretches, they're going to have to get some minutes on the bench to rest up real quick. But the Nets, they could just cycle through and always have Harden, Durant, or Irving on the floor, which is kind of Caris Levert's role at the time. He was the guy to do that, but they might have a big man situation. I expect them to make a signing or two. We're going to see guys get released, maybe even a trade. But the Brooklyn Nets roster as of now, Durant, Harden, Irving, DeAndre Jordan's at center. They have Joe Harris still in there.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be Irving, Harden, Harris, Durant, and Jordan. Off the bench, they have Shamet, good player. Tyler Johnson's a guard. Luau Cabarro. Jeff Green's the other big man. Do you want him to play center? Probably not. They could put out a small five for certain minutes, but I think they're going to have to make a signing here in the future to get that other big man in the rotation. Thon Maker did get released from the Cavs. How good is he? I don't know, but all you need is a guy to just eat up some minutes and be able to get rebounds and just fill in a space out there. So I still think this team is going to be very good. We're going to talk about the Kyrie Irving situation here after this deal, but I'm glad it's finally over. This Rockets team, they're probably thankful it's over as well, because they were a playoff team. I think they're a lower end playoff team. Yeah. And I still think with this team that they have, with all these additions, they could be either the same or just a seed or two lower in the playoffs. They're going to get the chemistry together, and they're going to actually play team ball now.
That was the big thing I was going to point on, is now they can focus on not the dramatics. They have all these guys. John Wall, yes, at one point was a super duper star, right? He was just it. Now that he's gone through his injuries, he's come back. He's probably the most humbled John Wall I've ever seen. He's always been a humble player. He's always been a great humbled player. They add Vic Oladipo, who I think has been playing well since his major injury a couple of seasons back. They still have Christian Wood, who's arguably the best, most improved player. PJ Tucker apparently is on the block. There's teams interested in PJ Tucker. What that means, I don't know, because who are they going to get for PJ Tucker? Maybe they get a role player. Maybe they get I think Daniel House is still going to be that flex between the 3 and the 4. I think he's okay. The Rockets are good at guard. John Wall, Oladipo, Eric Gordon, and Ben McLemore will step in. So however they're going to play the 1 and the 2, all 4 of those guys, they'll make it work. PJ Tucker running the 4. They still have Jashawn Tate, who is the backup to PJ Tucker. He's going to be able to step in if he has to. I like this Rockets team, and like you said, are they a good enough team to be in the eighth in the East? Or I'm sorry, in the West? I think they still are. I think as long as John Wall can stay on the court, Christian Wood and Vic Oladipo, that's not a big 3, but these are 3 guys who just love to play basketball and they show out when they have to. So I think maybe, yeah, they go out, they trade PJ Tucker, they get something in return for Tucker. We don't know. They have Karooks from Brooklyn, who's going to be able to step in and run the forward position. So they have different things that they can, situational lineups that they can play with. So I think Houston's going to be okay. The Pacers were another team in this trade. Obviously, the Pacers getting Caris Lavert. I don't know if they've really gained by getting him and getting rid of Vic Oladipo, but I'm sold on Caris Lavert. I think the Pacers are a great team, and in the East are going to be a very, very tough contender, I would say.
They're going to be a sleeper team.
They're going to be a sleeper team. They're already a good team. Like Sabonis every night going out, putting up 25 and 15, or he had like a 20 and 20 game recently, or 30 and 20, something crazy. Like they are a good basketball team and good enough in the East to where whoever they play in the first round is going to have a very tough time. They might even make it out of the first round and give whoever they play in a 7-game series a tough time. So I like the addition of Caris Lavert because Caris Lavert, as we've seen before, when he's starting and he is one of the main guys on the court, he can ball out. The Cavs are the Cavs. We don't know what's going to happen with them. They're still on the come up. They're still a great team, a young team, like for the future. They're still the Cavs to me. I don't know if they're really affected or not. I don't know if they're really a playoff team, but I do like their genetic makeup right now. So,
yeah, both. I think Oladipo was more of a salary dump. Oladipo only has 1 year left. I don't think they were able to get a contract extension with him. So that's why they went with Lavert. Maybe the Rockets are looking to just sign free agents in the offseason or maybe tank for a couple years and get a good pick. But Oladipo's done after this season. Maybe they flip Oladipo. We won't know.
Yeah.
Like if they decide like, yeah, another team does need Oladipo, let's just get more picks for him. It could be definitely worth it. But Lavert does have 3 years left on his deal, including this season, so he'll have 2 full seasons after this with the Pacers. That's what they're kind of looking for. $18 million guy for that value, good.
Yeah,
you'd want that guy for 17 or 18.
Especially with the team where they are just a piece or 2 off from being an actual contender in the East. Yeah, I think that was a smart trade, and you even pinpointed Oladipo it's Renadipo right now. It's literally Victor Renadipo. We'll see what the Rockets end up doing. Obviously, they're not a team who's going to compete with the Lakers, with the Clippers, with most of those teams in the West. So we'll see what ends up happening. It's very interesting, and it's got me excited for the NBA season. This is what I, as a fan, look forward to. Not the drama, but the big moves that teams like the Rockets are not scared to look at a player and say, you know what? If you're going to sit here and this is what you're going to do and demoralize our team, and we're going to kick you off this way, and then they're going to all scramble and figure out, okay, what are we actually going to do here for this season and 2 seasons ahead? This is what I look forward to, the rebuild. It's an instant rebuild. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I know that the trade deadline is, I don't even know what the exact date is on the trade deadline because we're a little bit later in the season. It's probably going to be closer to the end of February this year, but I'm expecting a lot of moves to be made by a lot of teams. So
in March 25th, we still have a few years left, or a few months left.
Few months, yeah.
Few years.
Few years to be for some guys, right?
Now with this James Harden trade, when is Kyrie Irving coming back? This is a new story that has kind of developed over the past few days. Kyrie Irving supposedly was at a family party or something without a mask. He was out in the public or something without a mask. He's been missing games due to personal reasons. No one really knows. Jarrett Allen, in a press conference last night, was talking about it. He basically said the team knows what's happening with Kyrie, so at least there's communication there. And he was like, yeah, he'll come back when he wants to. It doesn't seem like a big deal right now. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he did go to that party or whatever, and instead of being under protocols and getting drama that way, he's just like, you know what, I'll miss a couple games due to personal reasons, and I'll come back once I'm officially cleared to go. Well, James Harden being there now, like, does he want to come back and dominate?
He's got to come back eventually. At this point, there's no excuses for Kyrie. Ever since he got traded to like Boston, it didn't work. I know he was injured. Obviously he was hurt last year, I guess. You just never hear anything good about Kyrie Irving in the news in the past couple of years, ever since his big shot in the championship. And I know that Stephen A was on there saying he should retire. That's a little aggressive. I don't think he should retire. But I think it's at the point where you have a best case scenario with this team. You went to Brooklyn hoping they would make the necessary moves. You paired up with Kevin Durant. And I know deep down, and it's been rumored before that James Harden wanted to go there, or whoever, that they can get a big three. There is no excuses. Obviously, we don't know what happened. Why? These personal reasons, whatever. If he's got family issues, whatever it is, personal. I personally do agree. Do I think it's maybe because he got caught not wearing a mask at a family get-together? Sure, I believe that too. Why not play it smart and just say, hey, personal reasons, I'm going to take a few days off. Even though the team agreed, hey, we actually don't want you coming around for a few games, whatever it may be. But there is no excuse. And by next week, he doesn't come back because he's not hurt. There's no injuries. He's healthy. They're all healthy. That he doesn't come back and he does not get to practice right away with these three. Did they all three play on the Olympic gold medal team? Am I wrong? Were they not all three a part of that Olympic team? For at least 2 runs?
I'd say so. Westbrook, Harden, and Durant were all there with Kyrie.
Yeah. So you know how these guys play. And they're professionals. They watch each other. That's all they do. They watch basketball all day. Now it's going to come down to, all right, guys, we have to hang up our pride. We're not here to have triple-doubles every game. Harden, we're not here to have triple-doubles every game. Durant, you're not here to put up 45 a game. If it ends up being that we are running whatever Coach Nash is telling us to run and we are executing on the court, and it just so happens that somebody's averaging 35 a game, so be it. But this isn't a Houston Rockets team where you're going to put up a triple-double every game and you're going to sit there and you're going to lead the league in steals because you're really the only good player on your team. This is where you swallow your pride pill and you have to say, look, if my numbers decline, it doesn't mean I'm taking a step back. It means I'm doing what's right for the team to get ultimately that prized possession, what we play for, those rings. And it's going to take all 3 of them to not only communicate that, but they're going to have to communicate that with the team. They have to literally have that conversation with the team and say, look, we have the talent. We don't have Caris Lavert or Dinwiddie or some of these other guys that got shipped off in the trade or that are hurt. But we have arguably the best team with a great core around it. And this is how you guys, so this is us 3, right? This is how you guys are going to step in to not only help us blossom, but to help you blossom so we can get victories. That is literally how they have to go at this, because we see it all too often when there's a big 2 or big 3 or big 4, there's always drama, more times than not. They have got to eliminate the drama and focus on what the task at hand, and that's bringing a championship to Brooklyn.
I just hope Harden, when he does become a or starts playing for the Nets. We'll have to see like when that happens. I'm
Mhm.
watching that game immediately. If it's just
Oh,
Harden
man.
and Durant, I'm watching it. Again, I want to watch as many Brooklyn Nets games this year, and I want to watch like this is giving me a reason to watch even more. But before last night's game, James Harden, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, there's a funny clip. The Houston Rockets announcer, they were looking at him in the layup lines and stuff, and he looked heavy. And
Mhm.
the announcer went, "Yeah, James Harden, he definitely had a pregame meal today. He's heavy." But
Oh,
also,
no.
like they didn't say he was heavy, but they said that he had a pregame meal. And another stat that like was on the screen at the time was in the past 4 games, James Harden's averaging like 17 points a game. And yesterday he got 16. And I'm like, I hope he still has the scoring touch. Maybe it's just the Rockets system. They were kind of just avoiding him or something. That team's maybe not as good. Maybe he just wasn't putting in the effort. I don't know. I want him to get back to that 30-point Harden that we've been seeing.
Yeah. Then that could have been literally what stemmed from maybe there was a conversation, maybe there was something there that was like, let your team. Maybe he said, "Hey, I'm gonna let you guys take over. Prove to me that this is a team." Not without actually saying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it tipped that tank, right? It's just right there. That's the tipping point. He finally got fed up and was like, all right, if this is how they play when I put up 16 points, then maybe this isn't it for me. Maybe I shouldn't have signed that huge contract. And I I don't want to say I don't blame him. They've never really had, and it's obviously new management or whatever it may be now, but they've never had that winning type of mentality. They were eliminated, I don't know how many times in the first round or second round of the playoffs, a couple times by Dame Lillard. And you look at them and you're like, how do the Rockets continue to never compete for a title? I think after a while, Harden is probably questioning the same thing. I think maybe Russell Westbrook, who obviously doesn't really contribute to too many teams winning because he has yet to win. Great player, but yet to win, right? I'm sure he was like, wait, bro, why am I here right now? Let me get traded. And then Harden's like, well, maybe you're right. And I mean, they don't win. The Rockets have had what it takes to compete every single year with the best teams in the league. But when it comes down to it, and they blow 3-1 series leads, they go 0 for 27 from the field, or at least from the 3-point field in their last 27 shots, whatever it may be in the playoffs. Eventually, it gets to the point where, well, winning is important. The money's cool. But if I'm not winning and I'm part of a losing franchise, at the end of the day, they are a losing franchise. They don't compete in the playoffs. Then I don't blame Harden. I don't blame him. And I'm glad that he is where he is because now he has a chance. Because there is a lot of people chewing him up on social media. Now he's got a chance to, like I said, build a winning, build the chemistry with this team. It's basically a new team. Build that chemistry and build a winning culture in Brooklyn, which they have not had in a very, very long time. Obviously, they were New Jersey before,
Yep.
but you know, it it was for the best. I think everybody wins in this situation, and I think Harden, who has been not really performing the last few games, I think it was a matter of time. I think this is literally him just saying, "Listen, I have the power to put up 16 points and it's a mediocre game. Get rid of me." And then he was vocal about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I expect him to have many 40-point games with the Nets. Um, but I don't expect him to have to dominate every single day the stat sheet, which is going to be great. I want to see these guys actually play basketball, not just, hey, I'm going to pull up with 15 boards, 17 assists, and get to the line 25 times. Like it's not going to be required from him, is what I'm saying with these other talented players around him.
Mm-hmm. It's been fun watching this team without Kyrie, though. Durant, 26 points tonight, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. It's been so good seeing him back on the court. Durant is just unbelievable. It's still surprising how ranking systems had him at like the 9th best player in the league.
Yeah, no, he's still one of the best, clearly. I'm more surprised that he has not lost a step.
Yeah.
He's explosive, quick off the dribble. He's I mean, pulling up. His three-point game is still silky smooth, right? He's getting the bucket with ease. This is the Durant that we saw before he tore his Achilles, and he literally picked up like he never lost a step. Um, so I'm very excited. I'm happy to see him doing what he's doing. But yeah, to see him play and they're up like 20 points tonight, and you pinpointed he's got like 26 points, and I don't even think that the game's pretty much over at this point. But I mean, you're getting what you would hope out of Durant, who I mean, they took a chance on him. Everybody, the question was, are we going to see Durant? A lot of guys don't come back from the Achilles injury um, as explosive. It's a big injury, and Durant's proven that. Hey, I'm still a hooper. I'm still going to be that stretch forward. I'm gonna drive on your best player, and I'm gonna pull up on anybody. So I'm excited. I'm super excited for the Nets.
And you briefly talked about Washington. That'll be a story for another day. They have not been great.
Yeah, that's a whole nother 30-minute topic alone. Washington fans deserve better.
I really
They-
hope next week we will be able to talk about this Nets big three being able to play together. Really hope so. As soon as they
Mhm.
announce a lineup with those three, though, I am watching it. I am so down. If it's this weekend, we are making plans to watch it. No
Oh,
doubt about it.
absolutely. Absolutely. So their next game is Saturday, which is 3 days at home against Orlando, which Orlando's been a pretty solid team this year. Obviously, they lost Markel Fultz due to the ACL injury. And if it's not Saturday, then it's got to be Monday where the big three play. And they're going to be playing Monday night against Giannis and the Bucks. So
Ooh.
either game, I'm very excited. But that if he comes back, if Harden gets cleared to play and Irving comes back by that Milwaukee game, that is a playoff game right there. That could be a series. That literally could be a series we end up seeing, like a second or third round in the playoffs. Food for thought.
Yeah, so we'll just have to wait and see on that. In the basketball world, it's getting interesting. I'm expecting to see more people traded. Bradley Beal could probably be traded at some point.
Should be.
Other stars, I don't really know. I'm struggling to think off the top of my head, but we could be seeing a couple other people move here and there over the next month or so. NBA is just getting started. We always love these trades. We'll move over to the baseball world though before we get in the football playoff talk. We got one topic today for baseball. Liam Hendriks signing with the Chicago White Sox. The best reliever in baseball signs a 3-year deal, $39 million with a 4th-year option for 15 to make it a grand total of 4 years, $54 million. Man, that their window is they're taking advantage of it.
I think that is the missing piece they needed out of the bullpen. I think that's it. Watching him pitch against the Sox in the playoffs this past season, there's two things that went through my mind. One, I was like, I really hope they rock this guy. He very emotional and animated on the mound. I really hope they rock this guy. And the other thing that went through my mind was, whoa, this dude has it. I was like, I know he's only been in the league a few years. He hasn't really pitched a whole lot. He hasn't really closed. I think last 2 seasons ago was his first true closing role. And, I'm like, they're going to hit this guy. We're going to end up scoring some runs because that's what the White Sox do. No, he pitched lights out. And I'm like, whoa. And they talked about it. They said, if anything, they hope that Oakland brings him back because they're going to miss him. And I was like, whoa, he's a free agent. Well, the Sox aren't going to sign him. We'll see what they end up doing. Well, they got him. And I could tell you that I don't care how much money they paid him. I don't care that it's a record deal for a relief pitcher. I'm glad that they are all in right now They have what it takes offensively. Clearly, they have what it takes offensively. With the starting five, with guys returning, with the signing of, with them getting
Lance Lynn.
Kopech back, they got Lance Lynn, they have everybody else. They have obviously Lucas Giolito. Now you add arguably the best reliever, best closer, right? In baseball. I don't know what else they need except to stay consistent. That's it. Obviously, we're going to have, more than likely, we're going to have a 162 game season, knock on wood, unless the world turns into I Am Legend and the vaccines backfire, right? So we're going to have a full season. We're going to see what these bats can do for a full season. That's a lot of time to figure out down the stretch, okay, this is it. We're going to stick with this starting five. And I know that the lineups always change. That's just how baseball is based on scouting reports. But 1 through 9, the starting five and that bullpen. Tell me where we don't win 90 plus games.
I don't see it being lower than that, especially with Lindor being traded. The Twins, they were already kind of even with the White Sox. The Twins still have a very solid team, but man, if you don't necessarily pick the White Sox to win that division next year, I don't know what you're thinking, unless you're a Twins fan.
Yeah, because Lindor, like you said, Lindor's gone. Cleveland's not it. The Twins can still be okay. I could still see the Twins competing, being a potential wild card team. They still have a good team. I don't know. I could have sworn they lost somebody due to free agency, but yeah, they're my pick. And I know it's still early. We'll have once March comes around, we'll have our predictions, but the way too early predictions. My White Sox are my favorite out of the AL to make it to the big dance.
Yeah. The option for Liam Hendriks. So people might not know about this. So it's 3 years guaranteed. Then for the 4th year, it's a $15 million option. And I don't know how Liam Hendriks finessed this. His agent should get a raise or something.
Yeah.
But if they don't want to bring him back, most guys have like a $2 million buyout. They have like a $4 million buyout. No, if you don't want Liam Hendriks for the 4th year, you're just going to pay him that $15 million. And he is out of there. He's also going to be 35 towards the end of the deal, I believe.
Yep.
So he will be on the older side. As a reliever, it kind of gets tough staying top tier form. But $15 million. The only reason I say that Liam Hendriks won't come back for that 4th year is if he's just so terrible that they just have to forfeit that $15 million. You just have to be so bad.
Horrible. Like ERA like almost triples.
Yeah, and you're kind of like a back end of the bullpen type of guy, and like either someone's coming up or you decide to release him and pick up someone else for like a couple $1 million. But shout out to Liam Hendriks for getting that $15 million in his defense, man.
Yeah. That's record breaking right there. I mean, I'm excited. Well deserved. I mean, there's many contracts where you look at it and you say, oh, did he really deserve that? I would say Liam Hendriks definitely. The closing position, the relief pitcher, is probably one of the most underrated positions. One of the most underrated. The bullpen is probably the most important role, especially when you watch the World Series and you see pitchers like Snell get pulled from a game early when he's pitching a good game. You better hope your bullpen is it. Because if your bullpen isn't it, and they give up a couple extra runs, then I mean that says a lot right there. So I think it was a huge deal for Hendriks. Well worth the money. Even like you said, as he gets older, if he declines, all right, we'll eat the $15 million in his 4th year or whatever, So then again, that's if he's horrible.
They got the number 1 closer in baseball. They're making moves, unlike the Cubs, which I hate to see. Man, I get sad seeing the White Sox make moves and the Cubs just sitting there doing nothing. waiting for Chris Bryant or Wilson Contreras to get traded any day now for no reason. But we're going to move on. We'll talk about football. Wild card weekend.
It was
Couple
wild.
of decent games. We both got. So last week we made our predictions. We went over who we thought was going to win the wild card games. The ones that we got wrong, definitely Rams and Seahawks. We both picked the Seahawks. Did not think the Rams were going to win, especially without Jared Goff. Jared Goff had to come into the game, ended up winning there. And then the one I got the Saints and Bears wrong. Also the Steelers Browns. We both picked the Steelers. So I got quite a few wrong. I think I got half wrong. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. You that was a shot out of the dark with the Bears and the Saints. I said the Bears would cover the spread, which was 11.5. And all I'm saying is that when they score a touchdown in regulation, they should be forced to kick the extra point.
Yeah,
they would have covered the spread.
They should be forced unless it was like that one time where Diggs scored that game winner against the Saints.
Oh, and threw his helmet off. Yeah, that was different. That's different. For spread purposes, luckily I didn't, but that was definitely a that was a horrible game. That was a horrible game. The Bears. We'll talk about the Bears here momentarily. But yeah, I think I had every game right except for Pittsburgh, who it played like how they played in the whole second half of the season. Very, very rough. They started off on a defensive. They fumbled the snap, started off on a defensive touchdown for the Browns, and the Browns didn't look back. Browns almost gave it up. The Pittsburgh Steelers came back, even with 4 interceptions by Big Ben. For them to lose only by 11 and put up 37 points was pretty damn good. Might be the last game we've ever seen from Big Ben. We don't know yet. Buffalo and the Colts ended up being a close game. So you just got to tip your hat for Phillip Rivers for just always competing. So I give him a shout out, but unfortunately they did not win. Baltimore, we both had Baltimore beating Tennessee because realistically Baltimore, in my eyes, is the better team, and they had to get their revenge. They've been hot the last 5, 6, 7 games. Of course, Washington did not take down the GOAT in Tom Brady and the Bucks. Bucks ended up winning by 8, but Washington's step-in quarterback, Heineke, had a good game, had a great game. I mean, there was that rushing touchdown that he had where he just put his head down. He made the right moves and just went for it. That's a guy you want behind center. Rams in Seattle, 10-point victory, changed my whole predictions, literally just shattered my whole bracket. So this week, we are going to see Green Bay and the Rams in Green Bay. Luckily, you have the Saints and Tampa.
I wanted to go over the polls before we get into the.
Oh, yes. We did have polls. Yes, let's go over that.
So I put out polls on Twitter. I'll be doing it again this week. They were each timed directly before the game started, so people were able to get their votes in. The Colts and Bills, 76% of people voted that the Bills would win. They were correct. Out of 84 votes, we had 69 for the Seahawks and Rams. 75% of people voted that the Seahawks were going to win. A lot of people did. I don't know, the playoffs, one game, divisional game, the Rams pulled it out. 138 votes, Buccaneers won the majority there, 73%. The Ravens and Titans, both 50-50. Out of 119 votes, 50-50. The Ravens actually got the victory, though. They probably had 1 vote determine it. The Bears and Saints, out of 123 votes, 74% of people picked the Saints. And, yeah, they should have. And then the weird one, I don't know if I timed this, incorrectly. I could have timed it by a few minutes and drastically changed the votes. Or I just have a lot of Cleveland Brown fans, but 53% of people out of 120 votes selected that the Browns would beat the Steelers.
They hit it. If that was their underdog pick, they hit. I mean, the Browns we knew were the most questionable team in the playoffs. I mean, hands down the most questionable team. They had great games. They have a good running game. They have the weapons. Their defense has had its day. They've had some good games, I guess, not usually. But the Steelers, yeah, that was an interesting and very interesting poll. I probably would have I think literally every team we picked except for the Browns and Steelers, and they knew something that we did not know.
Mhm.
And if it was spreads, if we did a poll on the spreads, I wonder what it would have been then. But
Yeah.
that's a little bit far fetched.
So I will be doing polls again. I'll have them go live probably starting Friday. All of them will be up at once, and then they will expire at game time. So make sure to follow
Mhm.
at SROnlyPod on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter as well, I'll be retweeting them a bunch just to get as many votes as we can, and we'll discuss it next week. So this week, you talked about the first matchup with the Packers and Rams. And then what are the remaining matchups?
Yeah, so we're gonna have the Packers against the Rams. That's gonna be in Green Bay. That's Saturday. Sunday, we have the Bucks traveling to New Orleans against the Saints, which the Saints they've taxed. They've done damage to Tampa all season. 2-0 against Tampa. But it's a different Tampa team. Why? Because Brady's in the playoffs. That's why. We have Kansas City home against Cleveland. And then we have Buffalo home against Baltimore. These are tough. These are very tough matchups. I'm actually excited. So I didn't mention the Kansas City and Cleveland. They do play on Sunday. Buffalo and Baltimore, they play on Saturday night. So it's 2 games each. We have an NFC and an AFC game each day. Healy, now that we're here, let me know your picks for the NFC.
I got Packers and Bucks. Man, I don't know what team we're going to get from the Saints. I thought it was going to be a lot worse last weekend against the Bears. But the Saints came out, they got the victory pretty easily. I don't know if that's just the Bears being the Bears. The Bears looked horrible on Sunday or whatever day they played. But I got to go Bucks. Brady, he's dominated against the football team this past weekend, and I expect him to do the same again. I talked about last week how Tom Brady against the Saints earlier in the year, like, they didn't look too great, but these past few weeks, this offense has turned it around. Brady's and the offense has clicked, and they're looking like a different team compared to the first couple matchups they've had.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I completely agree. Yeah, I'm gonna go Green Bay just because they have the advantage. Offensively, I don't know who's gonna stop them. Besides the Bucks was the only team that really had a chance of stopping them. And they did. But besides that, I don't know if the Rams are beat up. We saw Cooper Kupp get hurt. We don't know the status of Jared Goff. He had surgery on like a finger or a hand, so he's forced to play. And then Aaron Donald was banged up a little bit too during that game. So all those guys are basically questionable going into the game, which can help Green Bay tremendously. I believe the Rams will run the ball pretty well against Green Bay. Green Bay's run defense hasn't been the best. It's their pass defense. They're pretty good there. If they can get into hit Goff or whoever's going to start at this point, I think they'll be okay. And like you mentioned, Tom Brady, it's the Brady bunch. There's just something about this team the last few weeks and their defense. Their defense is great. Their defense, I'm not going to say is as good as the Bears, but it is. There's been times where they're better than the Chicago Bears. I mean, let's face it. If they can do what the Bears did almost the whole first half or almost 3 quarters, they're going to win. Their offense is guaranteed to move the football. It's almost a guarantee. So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. On the AFC side, so that's going to be Tampa and Green Bay in the NFC Championship game, which is one for the books, 2 of the GOATs. AFC, Kansas City over Cleveland all day. They're going to cover the spread. It's a 10-point spread. I wouldn't be surprised if they win by like 17. Buffalo and Baltimore, on the other hand, is different.
This is
Buffalo,
the toughest matchup, probably.
This is the toughest matchup. You look at this. So how do I say this without sounding like a jerk? if you don't really watch football and you're looking at records and you look at seeds, then okay, I'm going to pick Buffalo. Like that's the easy pick. But when you watched all last season what Baltimore was capable of doing, how close they were from being that team, Buffalo's great. I love Buffalo. And I'm probably going to regret this, but my pick is going to be Baltimore, at least Baltimore to cover the spread. I think they're literally giving Buffalo like a 6-point spread. Oh, no, it's 2.5. Okay, that's a fair spread. So I'm going to go Baltimore. Baltimore and Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. Healy, who are your picks?
Chiefs and Buffalo.
Okay.
I'm gonna stick with my original prediction of the Bills and Chiefs being in the conference championship, and same with the Bucks and the Packers. Luckily, it was still up, like there's still a possibility, because I predicted Bucks Packers from the beginning, needed the Bears to win, but luckily the Seahawks lost and helped us still get that as a chance.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I picked Buffalo last week over over Baltimore. I don't recall. I feel like I had Baltimore going to the AFC Championship game, but I
Well,
changed my mind.
if Pittsburgh won, it would have been Pittsburgh
Oh, that's right.
against
Pittsburgh. You're right.
against
You're right. It would have
Buffalo.
changed the whole. Okay. So that's what it would have been. And then Buffalo against Kansas City,
Mm-hmm.
or Pittsburgh against Buffalo. Yeah. So I'm going to go with, I'm going Baltimore in this situation. I just have this weird feeling that no team has really been able to stop Lamar Jackson. I know people hate on him because he's not doing what the average quarterback does, but he moves the football and their defense is good. They have a very good defense. They shut down Derrick Henry to like 54 yards on the ground, average like 2.4 yards a carry or something crazy like that. Buffalo, Josh Allen's great. I do feel like if Josh Allen if he's limited to like no turnovers or a turnover and doesn't really get hit, sure, they're going to dominate the game. But I feel like this Baltimore's defense is going to wreak havoc on them.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's the toughest matchup. You would think that the toughest matchup would be Brady and Brees, but I just think this AFC one is just so much closer.
Yeah, oh yeah. Baltimore is 11-5 and most of those losses were more towards the first half of the season. So it's a different team, and any given Sunday, they got the talent. Both teams, I mean, literally every single team that I'm looking at right now has the talent to go off. Kansas City, that's like the only game where I'm like, for sure, like they should be able to cover the spread. The over under is 57 points. Like I'm expecting the over on that. As much as I'd love to see Cleveland be successful, but Cleveland just doesn't have the team quite yet. Not yet. This is still Pat Mahomes' time, and it will be for a while. This year, I feel like the Chiefs might actually be better than what they were last year. So I'm still sticking with my predictions for the Super Bowl. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how the NFL, both the night games are the lower seed games though, because I feel like those are going to be the better ones on TV. Kind of going off topic, but staying on the playoffs. Did you watch the Nickelodeon broadcast?
No. All I watched were the highlights of it, and I kind of regret not watching it. It looked very interesting. They had a kid pop up to explain penalties to the younger crowd or whoever who doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
The slime, Coach Payton got slimed after the game, which is pretty cool. They had the slime cannons going off for the touchdowns. They had SpongeBob in the field goal post, which is pretty cool. Are they supposed to do it again? Is that a thing?
I don't know if they're supposed to do it again. This could have been a one-time thing, which is why they had the MVP, which is the Nickelodeon Valuable Player, which Mitch Trubisky won thanks to the fan voting, and Barstool Big Cat for getting that vote to go through. But I thought it was cool. Would I want to see this every weekend? I wouldn't necessarily watch it every weekend. But from a fan perspective, I kind of wish it was for the Steelers and Browns game because there was way more scoring. There's more action.
Yep.
The Bears game, kind of weak for the first few quarters, but it was cool. They had Nate Burleson. They had another famous announcer's son who's just getting started. I can't remember his name, But they also had a 15-year-old Nickelodeon star, first ever NFL game, which was cool because as someone first, she might have seen some on TV or something, but as a novice to the game, she was able to ask these simple questions that a lot of kids watching at home probably have as well. To the average viewer that watches football, they'd probably be like, oh, wow, that's a dumb question. But like, that's because we know it. It's not meant for us. It's meant for the people growing up and learning the game. So it was cool how she would ask of certain situations and asked some like what their favorite ice cream flavor was to keep it the conversation a little different. It was cool.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I would check it out. I would definitely check. I'll probably be yelling regardless over the TV, depending on how the game's going. If it was Green Bay, but yeah, that was pretty interesting. I thought it was a joke at first, and then I saw Mitch Trubisky won the MVP, which I think maybe the McCaskies were watching that broadcast, and they were like, "Well, we have an MVP on our team, so a Nickelodeon valuable player, so we might as well stick with our guns, stick with pace. Let's stick with Coach Nagy. Why not stick with these guys? They just coached an MVP." What are your thoughts there?
I'm getting to that point where I am ready for the owners to just sell the team.
That's what it is. They need a winning. This whole like they have good rapport. They've they've grown with these guys. The whole idea that Matt Nagy has taken them to the playoffs 2 out of the 3 years is bullshit. I'm a Packers fan saying, Bears fans, you guys deserve better. You guys have deserved better. As a matter of fact, ever since Lovey has been gone, which was years ago, there's been a few playoff runs. You guys had some good teams. But when it comes to making the right moves and rolling the dice, so to speak, rolling the dice, when you are in a market where Chicago is probably I would say has the most like loyal fans, but they can either love you or they can hate you. It's hot or cold. But there's so many of them and they're passionate. And you're not rolling the dice for them. You roll the dice with Khalil Mack, but then you have a defensive coordinator who's dropping him back into coverage all the time. Robert Quinn, same thing. Your defense actually isn't bad. Your defense is pretty good. I don't know if anybody realized their defense compared to a lot of teams in the playoffs. Well, actually, all the teams in the playoffs right now have pretty good defense. There's like Seattle. Like I can name a lot of teams who are considered contenders with no defense. Play calling's horrible. The play calling was horrible. There was a point in the fourth quarter or late in the third quarter. Bears are down only 2 scores with a lot of time and 3 timeouts. It was the fourth quarter. It was like a 10-point game. Maybe 13. It was 2 scores. And first, second, third down, they run the ball. First, second, third down, they run the ball. Before halftime, I'm sorry. This is before half. There's 2 minutes. Just under 2 minutes. And you're thinking, well, they have 3 timeouts. Why wouldn't you pass the ball to try to get a field goal? I think it was 13-3, I think, at this point. And I'm sitting there watching it. Now, normally I laugh. I'm like, this is comical. This is literally like I feel bad. I'm laughing, right? To the point where I'm yelling. I go on Twitter. I'm like, this is it. I've had enough. I'm like, is this what it feels like to be a Bears fan? Watching horrible play calling every single week. They run the ball first, second, and third down because they didn't want to give the ball to the Saints, who only had like 1 or 2 timeouts. They didn't want to give the ball to the Saints. So they decided, since we get the ball at halftime, we're going to run first, second, third down. It was one of the worst play calls I've ever seen. And I thought at that point, that's it. Like, got the whole coaching staff. The whole coaching staff has to go. Pace has to go. You can't change owners. Owners are the owners. But you would think if I own the team and I'm watching this, I'm thinking it's a mockery. You're not trying to win the football game, knowing you have a defense that you have, and you have a quarterback who randomly has good games to compete with these other teams. You're not going to try to move the football? You're not going to pass? I don't know. I think that was the most frustrating thing I've ever seen. And then at the biggest slap in the face to Chicago fans, is saying, well, we've been we like the successful culture or whatever, the winning culture, because you went to the playoffs as a last seeded team. If this was a regular season, you would not be in the playoffs, you clown. You would not be in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody needs to teach this guy something. Say, hey, look, I'm gonna show you something. This is what a good team does. This is what a bad team does. Which team is yours? I want to know, which team do you think is yours? Somebody does this play calling. Who is this coach?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. We went to the playoffs. I bet that's how the conversation goes with everybody. That's his defense. They went to the playoffs, but you didn't compete. You ran the ball 3 times. 3 times. You literally could have ran the ball once, passed the other 2 downs. You have 3 timeouts, work the clock, use your quarterback, have confidence in your quarterback or your play calling. Apparently, there's no confidence at all.
Yeah.
And for that, Bears fans, I apologize wholeheartedly. I consider myself lucky that I was raised a Packer fan, honestly, at this point, because I would probably have like high blood pressure, anything you could think of, especially in Chicago, eating what we eat around here. Being angry all the time with Chicago sports. Bears fans, you deserve better.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have made the swap when I was like 7 years old from the Packers to the Bears. But
It's almost the right
Allen
thing to do.
Robinson, I think he said that he didn't know who was calling the plays the past few weeks.
Yeah.
Like the play calling was terrible. It looked good for a few games.
They better. The next thing we hear in the next few weeks is the Bears finally extended an offer to Allen Robinson. They're paying him with the top 10% of receivers. Why? Because he is literally what you need, a great possession receiver, someone who lays himself out every play if he has to, who gets 100 catches in a season when your quarterback is not performing. I'm not going to say he sucks. I'm not going to say he's bad. He's not performing. If they don't go and try to keep him, and they're going to roll the dice with Darnell Mooney, this isn't rolling the dice that I'm talking about, letting good guys go. They're going to roll the dice with Mooney, Anthony Miller, who couldn't keep his hands to himself, Jimmy Graham, and Kmet or whoever. Then again, Bears fans, I'm sorry again. Like, that's it. I just can only continue to feel sorry. That's it.
Good thing though, Chuck Pagano, I think he's retiring, so I guess
retire.
that's good. I thought he was going to be great. He was with team was he with right before this? He was the head coach of the Colts for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What team was he just with before the Bears?
Wasn't he a defensive coordinator before them?
Yeah, I think so. There was one team that he was with right before the Bears, and I'm like, yes, this is awesome. Oh, he was just a head coach, and he came back. I think he retired for a little bit.
Yeah, he was
with that Baltimore Ravens team before when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, back in 2011.
They had great schemes. So I'm like, yes, this is going to be awesome. Like, I am so glad that Chuck Pagano's here. And then the play calling on defense got wild. They still had a great season on the defensive end, but man, I don't think they nearly had as much pressure as they had in previous years. This is a team where you should be sending just a bunch of players to the quarterback every time you're getting sacks. They have the line to do so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you got to give up the big play. I mean, it's high risk, high reward. It's simple. Like, you got to roll the dice. That's just one of those situations. Fortunately enough, he's gone. Hopefully they bring in another defensive-minded coach who is willing to work better schemes out when it comes to, I mean, to see Khalil Mack not dominate the way he's always dominated, or Robert Quinn, who just came off a pretty good year, and some of the other guys. I mean, Akeem Hicks does Akeem Hicks things that, keep him around for as long as you can. Defensive backs were okay. Eddie Jackson was very quiet this year, but it makes you wonder, was it a part of the defensive play calling? Like, Eddie Jackson, the last couple of years has been a turnover machine. I think he had a couple this year, but he's quiet the second half of the year. So we'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, we won't know much until the Super Bowl is over, which is in a few weeks. So yeah.
Man, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this season, especially after them announcing Pace and Nagy would be back and pretty much saying like we're done with Trubisky. This is going to be Ryan Pace's fourth quarterback that he's signing to the team since he's arrived. He has signed or traded for Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles, Mike Glennon, and he has to make another draft pick here. There's a lot of guys that he could draft. I hope he makes the right decision this time, because from the Mitch Trubisky draft, he definitely missed on a couple guys there. One of them, who's being rumored to on the trading block, I would love for the Bears to trade for Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson, yep.
But, like, man, he should have been a Bear from the beginning. Shouldn't have even been a miss.
Or Mahomes.
At the time, I think Watson was the higher rated prospect.
Yeah, he should have been the lock. He should have been the lock. And that's what they get. They try to, it was like a very unorthodox type pick. You get a guy with 10 games in college, and that's all you know. What is he in is that the SEC? What is North Carolina?
ACC.
The ACC, okay.
Which isn't even that, like, great.
No. But you don't go out and get the guy who just won a title. Why would you do that?
Against Alabama.
Against Bama? Against Roll Tide?
I guess Watson's from ACC as well, but they won the national championship.
They beat
Bama in a pro offense.
Yeah. I don't know. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to wrap up the episode. Thank you for tuning in. As a reminder, hit that download button. That is the only way we can see our analytics, at least for right now. Follow us. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter, SR Only Pod, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube as well, Standing Room Only Podcast. You can follow me. I'm iGoose with 4 O's, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. And then we have Healy as well.
You can follow me at the Healy6 on Twitter and Instagram, and then Healy6 on YouTube and Twitch. We will see you guys next week.